Brett. It's been a long time away from the
game. Very long time.
But, to be fair to us, a lot of stuff happened. You had a child, a little one, right? How old is the little one now?
It's just about to go on 18 months.
Good God. Well, yeah, I kind of remember that. I'm just surprised you're even awake here at this time of night. Are you getting sleep?
Oh, I sleep wonderfully.
Wow.
That kid doesn't wake me up.
That's awesome.
To be fair, Jackson does sleep through the night. So.
Well, you got one of the rare good ones. Good for you.
Yes.
Easy. I'm watching that gorilla video the other week with a gorilla, or this week actually, pulling that child through the water. I think as a parent, I would just be freaking out. Have you seen that?
Don't worry, Mommy's here.
Mommy's here. I wouldn't. That's not what I'd be screaming. I'd be like trying to climb over the rail and get in there. I'd take that gorilla on one-on-one. But anyhow, that's just me. But first of all, I wouldn't have. Well, I'm being kind of judgmental here, but I probably wouldn't have let my 3-year-old squeeze through the rails in the first place.
2 barriers.
Yeah, 2 barriers after he had already told Mom he was threatening to go through the barriers. Yeah. Anyhow, scary stuff. And a sad ending, unfortunately for the gorilla. But hey, we're here to talk about soccer. And we are back, and we've got Copa America right around the corner. And I guess before we talk about who's up next, which is Colombia, we should probably start with some of the games we already played. We had Ecuador, and then we had Bolivia.
Don't forget Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I'm going to forget Puerto Rico.
Well, let's just leave it at this. That was a nice game to see some new faces, but it doesn't tell us anything.
It really doesn't. It doesn't tell us a whole lot yet. We didn't play particularly well, and I don't think anybody took it very seriously. It looked really like kind of a stroll in the park game that you might play a pickup game. That's kind of what it looked like. And then we got to Ecuador, and things got a little more serious, and I think Jurgen Klinsmann tried out what he thought might be his starting lineup, with Fabian playing left back, Yedlin at right back, which I think was cool. And then we got to the next game with Bolivia, where we just kind of experiment. And a lot of people freaked out about that, but they're like, "Oh, Jurgen Klinsmann, here he goes again, playing Beasler at left back. What the hell is he doing?"
Catch yourself on that one.
I know, I did. I'm still calling him Bessler.
Hey.
I know. It's horrible. I've been doing it for about, 6 years now straight? 5 years? Whatever it is.
I was more up in arms about Orozco playing it right back than
Orozco shouldn't even be on the roster.
Yep, I know. That's why I was more up in arms about that one.
But I think almost everybody we know agrees with us on that. So that's not really a shocking thing for us to say or anybody else to think. It's just that here's a guy who could barely get into the starting 18 for his Mexican team. A Mexican team, by the way, who in Tijuana, Club Tijuana, who just decided they're going to sell all their players.
It's a fire sale.
All of them are up for sale, including the 4 Americans on the team, which are Guido and Garza are also on that team. And they're going to get rid of everybody if they can. Good luck on getting rid of Orozco. I don't think he could play on most Mexican team starting lineups. Why Jurgen Klinsmann is so in love with Orozco, I just cannot figure it out. Who's to say? There's some weird things that Klinsmann does, and this is certainly an obsession that, and he's gone through other obsessions before. Like he stuck with Shea for a long time, regardless of the fact that Shea couldn't get playing time in the English Premier League, and then when he was on loan, he couldn't get to a lower league team. He couldn't get playing time either, but he stuck with Shea for a while.
Heard he was a little upset that he didn't even get considered for the 30-man roster.
Well, looking at our left backs that are available,
Mm-hmm.
I think Shea could have been considered. But then again, so should have Villafana. And a lot of people have talked about that as well because he had such an amazing season in Mexico.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we're just going to wait on that. Now, Castillo, to be fair to him, Castillo's also had a very great season in Mexico. It just never seems to translate to the Nats.
There's no transition into the Nats, and
yeah,
I think I've seen enough of Castillo and Orozco to know that we've got to find other options. I mean, don't get me wrong, Castillo can definitely play. He definitely has his games where you're like, you know what, that was actually a pretty good game for him.
Mm-hmm.
But quite frankly, he's too hit or miss, and at this level, we can't take hit or miss.
No. And
we've got a couple other options we can take a look at, and problem is we've just wasted, I won't even say the last 2 years because both of which have been there since the beginning of Klinsmann's era, and nothing's changed. Every game they're starting, I'm just like, oh, God, no, please.
Right,
you know?
Right. No, I agree with you, and I think that's because Klinsmann has basically decided, hell or high water, that Fabian Johnson is going to play left back for this team. And it doesn't matter that Fabian Johnson is a Bundesliga star playing left winger, left midfielder for his club, Borussia Mönchengladbach. It just doesn't seem to matter because that's where he wants to go with it, because we do have other positive options for left midfield if we're going to play a 4-3-3 or what looks like to me to be much more of a 4-5-1. That's what it plays like to me. I'm sorry, I played a 4-3-3 when I was in high school and other places. We don't play a real 4-3-3. That's really a 4-5-1. That's okay. I mean, it's semantics, and people want to argue that's really
Splitting
a 4-3-3.
hairs.
Yeah, that's fine. I can live with that. I can just tell you what it plays like, and what it plays like is a 4-5-1. It's just unfortunate because I think he would be a real asset, Fabian Johnson, at left midfield.
Well, and here we brought up Beasler playing at left back against Bolivia, and I thought he played very well actually.
He did.
I mean, he's not going to be the speedy, up and down the field that you would get out of Fabian Johnson, but he's a smart defender. He can get up in the attack, but the big thing is he can definitely play the defensive role that you're requiring of him.
Right.
What's nice about that is, say if Klinsmann sticks with the 4-3-3 and we stick Beasler back at left back, maybe that offers the option of, say, putting Fabian Johnson up at one of the three strikers, take out Zardes.
Yeah.
I'm not his biggest fan by any means. I mean, once again, it's a player that shows a lot of potential. He shows what he can do, but his first touch is dreadful. And I'm hoping, as a young player, I'm hoping he's working on that, and we'll see improvement, and he'll turn out to be a massive star for the U.S.
But Brett, we've had this discussion about Josie for years. It's the same thing.
Not Josie.
Who of course is Zardes' favorite player? Josie
he
Altidore.
looks up to Josie. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's fine. He can look up to Josie, but the one thing Josie has never really, and we did this for years. We were like, well, he'll get better. And he has gotten slightly better, but this is one of those skill things I always talk about. By the age of 21, by the age of 19, somewhere around that age, you've actually almost reached your skill potential. That doesn't mean you're not going to become a smarter, higher IQ soccer player. You will, but your ability to flinch react, muscle memory reactions, that's already ingrained in you at that point. There's not much better you're going to get at a first touch after that age. That's something you learn when you're small. And so I would venture to say this, like Josie, Zardes' first touch is never going to get better. We can only hope that those accidental concrete block touches that he makes end up, being accidental assists, because that's what they've happened to actually be a couple times, and that's fine. But these people who think that he's going to get demonstrably better from here, I think they're wrong. Zardes' skill set with his touch is such, it's like John McEnroe, right? You don't teach that. You're not going to, no one's ever going to be a John McEnroe, okay? He was born with that, right?
Yeah.
He was born with that. And that's either something you have by this age or you don't. I mean, they can take him out into the field and put balls in a cannonball and shoot at him, and maybe he'll get slightly better at reacting to balls. But really, this is as good as his touch is probably going to get. It may be slightly better. He can only do one thing, in my opinion, Brett, and that's become a smarter soccer player and have a higher soccer IQ, which means he still can get demonstrably better, but not there.
Well, and to go off of your point as far as being a skill that you learn at a young age, and from there it can get a little bit better. I don't always use. I'm not a golf fanatic by any means, and I couldn't tell you much about that. But I do recall when Tiger Woods was winning everything, he took a year to readjust his swing in attempts to make things better. Now, again, I don't follow the sport, and I couldn't tell you if it in fact improved him. I know that he ended up getting worse after a little incident, but that's the thing that Zardes would have to do. He's not going to just go out there and just do the exact same thing over and over again, because what's going to happen is you're going to get the same result over and over again. He would have to completely change it from the ground up, and that could end up ending his career. Yeah, so at this point, he's got to try to fine tune it a little bit. Hope that it leads into some decent opportunities in the future, and it has. I mean, he's got some nice goals. He's got some assists.
He's still a good player. Yeah,
and he's still a viable starter for the U.S. right now.
He's still a guy that's positive.
But I would just say that if we could push Fabian Johnson up top, I would do that in a heartbeat.
I would love to see Fabian Johnson starting at left wing, but I think right now we're headed.
When you're saying left wing, are you referring to the three in the center, or are you referring to the imaginary 4-5-1 wing?
So I am honest about our formations, and I will tell you that if you're actually playing a classical 4-3-3, that yes, the three forwards up top, which is what they really are in a honest to goodness 4-3-3. There's not a whole lot of defense. For instance, you watch Barcelona play when they played a 4-3-3. When Messi was there, when Henry was there, Henry didn't go back, even though he's playing out wide, and play a whole lot of defense. He played some, but not a lot. He didn't go all the way back and into their end and play a whole lot of defense out wide. And so what I'm saying is this is more of a 4-5-1. So, yes, what I mean when I say him as an LW, I do mean that he is the left winger in a 4-5-1, because we don't really play a 4-3-3. We wouldn't be capable of playing a Barcelona-style 4-3-3. No, we can't. No. We don't have the skill.
Now, big question would be, with playing both Zardes and Dempsey up top, along with insert third striker here, whether it's Zardes, whether it's Fabian Johnson, whether it's Zusi, with both Wood and Dempsey playing up top, would you feel that maybe it's going to look more like a 4-4-2 with the third striker getting back, but not necessarily Wood or Dempsey, because neither one of them are necessarily midfield minded. Even though Dempsey did play there for a chunk of his life, he's pretty much at this point ingrained as a striker, stay up top, check back when you want the ball type of thing. But I don't see Wood and Dempsey getting back that much into the defense. Again, maybe at that point it branches off into a 4-4-2.
I really think it depends on who we play. Sure. I think versus Colombia, you're going to see a 4-5-1 look, because we're going to be worried about the counter. We're going to be worried about their speed. We're going to be worried about their skill. And you're going to see us not wanting to lose that opening game, and we'll take a tie probably. And then I think, versus Costa Rica and Paraguay, I think the options are open to be more aggressive and have that little triangle in the middle spread out a little more. So it's not Bradley, Jones, and probably Bedoya would be my guess as the starting lineup. Although there's a guy, the armchair analyst on MLS.com, who thinks that Beckerman's going to get the start, and I really hope that's not the case. I like Beckerman. I think he has served us well. I also think that his time is over. And so I think playing Bradley in that deep position with all the way in front of the back four, and then having Jones and Bedoya as the more mobile central midfielders, I think that's where we want to go with this. I think that's what we're going to see. I really do.
Well, and I can see it. There's two sides to this coin. You know, I could see him approaching Colombia and going a much more conservative route, similar to how he did with Ecuador at the beginning, where he, you know, had the big three, you know, the Beckerman, Jones, and Bradley all run the middle. You know, Beckerman sitting back and Bradley and Jones pushing forward. But then I could also see, since obviously Bradley has looked solid at defensive mid, which is, in all honesty, should have been the position he's been playing this entire time. You know, you shouldn't pigeonhole a player into a position he's not comfortable. Not saying that Bradley's not comfortable as an attacking mid. He could easily play the role. He might not be the most efficient player there, but I think he feels most comfortable sitting right in front of the defense, collecting the balls, looking to start the attack somewhere.
I agree. I think that's his natural position.
I would hope that. I mean, quite frankly, I mean, even Jones isn't necessarily an attacking mid by any means. But I mean,
he sure looked that way.
If you're going to have Bradley sit back, then you might as well, you know, play him and then play somebody like Bedoya, who while can certainly get into the attack and create opportunities, but he also has tenacity to get back and play defense and cause a lot of issues for the opposing attacking players. So that's the reason why I think Bedoya would probably get the nod over Beckerman, simply because, as you're mentioning, Beckerman's in the past, you know, very similar to like, say, an inclusion of Wondolowski. It's like, why are we including him? I mean, is he really going to get a play? You know, so it's one of those things that you're just like, he's the past, he's there as an option, but this is what we need to do moving forward.
No, I agree, and I think that we shouldn't underestimate Jones as an attacking player. I mean, what we've seen out of him, and I know people will say, well, it's just MLS. Well, you know what? He's been pretty dominating since he's come back from a 6-day ban. There's a reason Colorado is near the top of the table, if not the top of the table in the West right now, and that's because Jones has been a monster. I mean, he gets back and he plays defense, but when the ball moves up the field, he has the freedom to be an attacking player, and he's just been devastating so far. And I see that he's got that. Now, did he play a great game in versus Bolivia? I don't think he did. I think he played a fairly confused game. I don't think he looked really sure about this new role with Bedoya and Bradley in that triangle in the middle. But I think that will pass, and I think he will get comfortable, and I think he will be dangerous. And so I think we can expect Jones to show his skill. And I know there are detractors of Jones, but you got to also take into account the one thing Jones gives us that no other player on our team does. And you would think Dempsey would bring some of this, and he brings a little, but not enough in my opinion. Jones brings some serious toughness, sort of badass approach to the game. He'll do whatever is necessary. If that means taking somebody out, he'll do that too. And we don't have enough of that. And there's one guy in that locker room, if you talk to a lot of U.S. men's national team people who cover the team close up, and all the players will tell you as well, there's one guy that holds everybody accountable, and that's Jermaine Jones. And he'll get on your butt real quick if you aren't doing what you're supposed to be doing on the game during the game. And he'll be on your ass during halftime, too. If you're not living up to your – he's the enforcer of this team, not only on the field but emotionally and verbally. And you talk to his former teammates in the Revs, and there's been many interviews of Revs players who said, you know, losing him was the hardest thing they're going through right now because he was the team leader. He is a leader, and that's what we need on the field. And that's why I think you're going to see Jones last until 2018, frankly.
Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
So that gets us to, and I don't know, did you have anything more to add about the Bolivia game?
Not about the Bolivia game. I mean, we saw a lot of good things, obviously.
Yeah.
One thing to always consider, just simply because, I mean, again, these were all friendlies and stuff, but I really liked the energy that Nagbe brought off the bench.
Nagbe's I agree. He'll definitely be an option off the bench every game. He may even start a couple games. We don't know.
I was going to say, I mean, a possible idea, and I don't think this will ever get considered by any means, as against some, say, Colombia, who, you know, it's going to be arguably our toughest game of the group.
And they're quick.
It will be. But you could theoretically say, have Jones and Bradley run more of a duo defensive mid / pulling up into the attack, but have Nagbe run more of the offensive side instead of Bedoya. It offers a little more creativity, but still offers the defensive coverage by both Jones and Bradley per se.
Yeah, I mean, you could play two in front of the back four of a different type of triangle and have the point of the triangle be Nagbe. And that would be completely fine with me as well. I don't think that's something that Klinsmann's going to do, although it's really hard to predict what Klinsmann's going to do anymore. I really do think that Bedoya is still ahead of Nagbe as far as the trust level goes with Jurgen Klinsmann. And I think that he's more likely to start a guy like Bedoya in that triangle with Jones and Bradley. And so I think that's what we're going to see. And I think based on the last game, as we got closer, we're getting closer to Copa America in the first game on Friday, I really think that's what he wanted to see. And guess what he saw? He saw Bedoya and Jones and Bradley working fairly well together with Bradley in front of the front four. And I think he's going to feel comfortable doing the same thing against Colombia. One thing about Jurgen Klinsmann is that test game or that friendly right before the big game, whether it's the Gold Cup or whether it's the World Cup, it seems to me he's always put in a lineup close to what he thinks he's going to need in the midfield. He'll mess around with the back four because he always does, right? But when it comes to the midfield, he's testing something specifically, and we saw that right before the World Cup with Beckerman and playing that right in front of the back four role and doing an amazing job in the friendlies leading up to the World Cup, which is why he played in the World Cup. So I think that's what we saw versus Bolivia. And so now here we go. We're heading into it. And let's look at the back four, potential back four starting. And I think there's no arguing. I think your two center backs right now are Cameron and the guy from Germany,
Brooks.
Thank you. I knew.
I thought you were pulling a little joke on that. I'm not remembering his name.
John Anthony Brooks. Yes,
yeah.
I don't think there's any doubt that's our starting back two, unless you have a different thought.
No, I would say you're 100% correct, but people are arguing about the center back options, whether or not Cameron is the best option for to partner with Brooks. I think it's a definite option not a definite option. I think it's a definite go-to that Brooks and Cameron are going to be the starting defensive back. And I think they look great.
What more does Cameron need to do in the English Premier League to prove to you that he's capable of playing almost any position? I mean, how many different positions can a player play for Sunderland? And he's done them all ably.
Not Sunderland, Stoke.
I mean, Stoke. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, Yedlin with Sunderland. Sorry. But, I don't know what else he needs to prove at this point. He plays on a decent mid-table team in the English Premier League, and he's regarded by his peers as a solid player. And the numbers and the stats back it up when he's not injured. And Brooks, I mean, he had one hell of a season for Hertha Berlin this season until he got injured at the end, and they fell apart without him in the lineup. They literally fell apart at the end of the season, and they went from like 4th to 7th or 6th or whatever it was in a matter of weeks. So there's no doubt that those two guys are at the top of their game right now. You can argue Beasler all you want, Beasler all you want, but I'm sorry, that's just not going to work. I think glad
most people have been arguing Birnbaum in there. I
like Birnbaum and I like Beasler, but they're not playing the same kind of quality opponents day in and day out that Cameron and Brooks have faced all season long. It's a ridiculous argument to make, if you ask me.
Huh? We're both on the same page on that.
All right. And then, is there any doubt that Yedlin should be the right back? I mean, there's no debate there. There's just no debate. I mean, who else are you going to put there? Now, left back, I think we're all going to have arguments about whether Eric Lehigh should be there or should be given an opportunity, or Villafana, but those guys are not on the team. And so we're basically stuck with probably Fabian Johnson, which is not a bad guy to be stuck with. It's just not his best position.
It's not his best position. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, he could do more damage as an attacking player. And, of course, Jurgen will say, well, we play him out there, but we expect him to go forward. But not in the same way he would be going forward as a left winger or a left midfielder. So,
and he did not show the level of danger, I guess you would expect from him against Ecuador.
Right.
He almost seemed a little reserved because he had to play catch up 90% of the game, trying to catch up to the Ecuadorian attackers.
Yeah.
So you could say, yeah, he's expected to get pushed up into the attack, but yeah, you're right. He's not going to get those looks that he would normally get playing out left mid.
And let's face it, Jurgen Klinsmann's a stubborn dude, and that's what he wants to do, and that's what he's going to do. If he weren't stubborn, he would have said, "Oh, look at this Villafana guy," months ago, and said, "This guy is really kicking ass in Liga MX," and he didn't. He just didn't.
It's the same argument with Lehigh. I mean, Lehigh's been having a pretty decent career in the Champions, but he just now got to look. He just now got to look in the what is it, the 30 man prelim roster. Actually, it's probably more than that actually, but
35.
But he just now got to look, and he got part of the game, like the second half sub or whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, it boggles my mind how some of these players are falling through the crack. That Klinsmann is saying, "Oh, we want all of our players off in Europe playing. Get out there and play in Europe." And you have options that are in Europe. You have an option that's in Mexico, but neither of which are getting called.
Yeah, and it just kind of makes you wonder, because the one guy that does not belong on this roster is Orozco. And Orozco is taking the spot of somebody like a Villafana. Let's say you just have Villafana on the team. He doesn't even get to play, but boy, this is a good experience, and it's a good way for him to get acclimated to the team. Not only that, Orozco's getting up there in age, and he isn't starting. He isn't playing for his club team. In fact, he's been riding Pine. He was playing with the youth team on his team a while back. The guy does not deserve to be. He's done nothing in Jurgen Klinsmann's own philosophy of how he's going to pick players. He's done nothing to earn a call-up, nor did Timmy Chandler, by the way. That was a desperation call-up. And, of course, Timmy Chandler just so happened to once again be injured right before the call-up for the United States team. And I'm not saying that he doesn't want to play for the U.S., but you and I both know he has a very, very high degree of fear of flying. And I think sometimes this is more mental than anything for him. I think he likes being injured before a call-up because he really doesn't want to get on a plane and fly to the United States. I think flying scares the holy living crap out of him. And you know what? If you have that sort of hang-up, and even there are medications you can take for that, but still, that fear of flying for some people is so extreme that I think that's hampering him. And by the way, he has played almost nil for his club team in Nuremberg, except for the last couple games of the season. He did not deserve to be called up either.
No.
I'm sorry.
No, and jumping back to Orozco, I think people will, playing devil's advocate, will make the argument that maybe Klinsmann kept him in the lineup or roster simply because of his versatility. He can play out back, he can play the center back. But the argument against that would be we already have 4 center back options.
That's right. Exactly.
He's clearly taking a wing back option. There's no way we're going to go 5 deep in the tournament at center back.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
Yep.
So that argument's out the window.
It
so
is.
Basically, he's taking and this is him sticking to the good old boys in this situation because he's been calling him up relatively consistently since his tenure started. So maybe this is more or less a hey, I feel comfortable with Orozco. He's been in the program. He knows how I run things. Eric Lehigh, he's gotten a call up, 1 or 2 call ups. Yeah. Lafana hasn't got called up at all. So, I mean, these people aren't familiar with the setup, and here we are entering a major tournament. So I want somebody who's familiar with the setup and how we're playing the game. But big thing there is that we never play a consistent formation, a consistent lineup, a consistent anything from game to game. Everything's a toss-up.
Right. And, the only thing I can think of is that, maybe Orozco is just amazing in practice.
Well, he's got a whole history of national team call-ups to base his judgment on at that point then. I don't care how good you are in practice, but if you keep coming out and playing mediocre to worse, I would say, hey, we got to find somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think the good news for us is that up top, at least, I think we've got some good options. I think Bobby Wood's playing as good as he's ever played. Mm-hmm. I think that signing with Hamburg, that's a big, huge positive. He's so full of confidence right now.
Oh, yeah.
And I think
it's showing in his play, too.
Yeah, and I'd like to see him start out wide on left because we all know Dempsey's going to be in the middle unless he's injured for some reason. And Zardes will probably get the start out right, more than likely. And that's fine. I think that's a good attacking group. Both Zardes and Woods have shown they're capable of coming back and playing that defender role in a much more looking 4-5-1. And that way Dempsey can just roam up top. The only threat of that, or the only thing we have to worry about, though, is that we do get stuck playing a lot of defense sometimes. Mm-hmm. And we get kind of jammed back into our own end. And how do you get out when you only have really one guy up top? And so, we'll see how that works out for us. It certainly worked for us versus Bolivia.
You kill the momentum with halftime, like we did with Ecuador.
Mm-hmm. But all right. So let's go to some predictions here. Let's guess the score for U.S. versus Colombia. I'll let you start.
Well, I mean, I feel like we're going to be looking at an attempt to upset, similar to how we did with Ecuador. The late game, grinded out late game win. It's either going to be a draw or we're going to lose. I mean, I'd hate to say that we're going to lose, but to be honest, I think if we can grind out a result in a tie, I'd be happy. I would like to go for the win. Nobody rip my head off.
Yeah,
but I'm just being honest.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I mean, I was going to say a 1-1 tie, and we'll see how that works out. I think the home field advantage should help a little. The fact that we're not going to have to travel that far, and we're settled in and we're ready to go. And I think we're coming off a good win, and I think the flow is good. So I think we'll probably play more defensively as well. I think we can probably pull out a tie there, and that's probably what Jurgen's going for. How about Costa Rica?
I think this is probably going to be. I mean, while Costa Rica's no slouch, I think this is the one that we have to win. We can say the same thing about Paraguay too, but I think this is one that we're going to want to go out for the win. I suspect Costa Rica is probably going to run the possession game and over the U.S. at least, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say 2-1 win for U.S.
Yeah. No, I think that's about where I was headed to. And then I was going to say the same thing for Paraguay. 2-1 win, maybe 2-0. Although don't underestimate Paraguay. They're a good team, and I think people don't realize that this is not an easy group.
No, this is we could easily flame out 3 losses, no doubt.
We really could. And then what happens? Does Klinsmann, if we flame out in 3 losses, wow. That is a serious indictment of Klinsmann's reign, and will he survive it?
Yes.
Yeah, he probably will.
He's not gonna get canned, and we have no backbone in our organization, and it's not gonna happen. Who are we gonna replace him with? I mean, we do have options to replace him with.
Yep.
But I mean,
we'll save that for another show.
Yeah. But yeah, I expect the U.S. to move on through the group. It's going to be tough, but I expect them. These are the expectations we need as a country. I know there are some people that are saying, oh, we could go all the way and win it. We could, but I think expectations should be at minimum to get out of the group.
Get out of the group, and then anything can happen.
Exactly.
Basically, that's what we're shooting for in any tournament. If you have a tournament with, Uruguay, Brazil, Argentina, and Colombia in it, then you're just hoping that somehow you can get through the group stage and get into that all or nothing stage, because we're also looking at quarters and semis, finals that go straight to shootout after 90 minutes. So no extra time. That'll be interesting.
So weird.
Yeah, it is weird. It's very weird. All right. I think we covered everything for the most part. And we're going to try to do this more regularly as the Copa America continues its march through this month. And, we're happy to be back. This is Derek Ritchie and Brett Corbett. And this is the Straight Red Card. We hope to see you and hear from you soon.